Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Rajneesh and today this session is going to be about replication between 389 directory servers. So this first replication environment is going to be between infra and infra 2 servers. As far as infra is concerned, we have already installed 389 directory server and we already have a video corresponding to that. You can have a look into the playlist. In this video we are going to prepare infra 2 server so that we install 389 directory server, and infra 2 is going to act as a slave. It means infra 2 is going to be in read only mode. We are not going to directly modify anything on it. Rather, whatever we are modifying, we are going to modify it in infra server, and the change will be replicated to infra 2 server. Okay, so if we think about the practical implementation of it, there could be a central office and there could be multiple branches of the same office. So we could set up the same kind of scenario in which we are going to modify everything in infra, but the slaves are available to the customers or to the branches so that they can have fast access to the database. Okay, coming on to infra 2 server. uh, Let me open console of infra server. I have a GUI. Let me move to full screen mode, and let me move to full screen mode. Okay, so first thing I need to do is let me move to infra 2 server, and I need to set up 389 directory server on it. Let me see if I have already installed the packages. .389. So here I can see the 389 directory server is already installed on it. 389 DS console is there, so everything is there. What I need to do is I need to set up ds admin.pl -k to keep the information file that will be created in TMP. Would you like to continue setup? Yes. So it is giving me two warnings that it gave me in the previous scenario also. One is about the file descriptors and other is about keep alive time. So let me set the keep alive time to 5 minutes 300 seconds. Do you want to continue? No. However, if you want, we can continue with it. sysctl.conf. Actually, these things have already been explained in the previous topic where we set it up. 60 into 5, that is 300, and sysctl minus p to update it. So TCP keep alive time is now 300. The other part was file descriptors /etc security limits.conf. So shift G, it's no file, maximum number of files that can be opened. So for any user, type any no file 102400, and I just try it and quit. I log into the server once again. Your limit -n, it's now 102400. So now I'll run setup ds admin.pl -k to keep information file. So now all is fine. There is one notice which says I have a single processor. Yes, I have. Would you like to continue? Yes. The kind of setup, it's typical. Computer name for infra 2, it is going to be infra 2. System user, you can keep it LDAP, or by default it's nobody, so I am keeping it the same. Group nobody, the same. Do you want to register this software with an existing configuration directory server? No, because right now I am considering that I am creating this infra 2 server as a standalone server, but in stage 2 I am going to set up the replication between them. Do you want to register this software with an existing configuration server? No. Okay, configuration directory server, admin. Administrator ID is going to be admin, and password I keep as admin2 at 123, admin2 at 123. Administration domain. If you are talking about administrative domain, as we have to sync labs.local between infra and infra 2 servers, so we have to keep the domain same. Got it? The domain should be same, because effectively what we are going to sync is this domain dc equal to labs comma dc equal to local, so it should be the same as infra server. So let's keep it labs.local. Directory server network port, LDAP default is 389, which is fine. Directory server identifier is infra2, that is fine. Suffix dc equal to lab comma dc equal to local is fine. Directory manager is okay. cn equal to directory manager. What should be the password? Manager2 at 123. Manager2 at 123. Admin port 9830 is fine. Are you ready to set up your servers? Yes. And it's going to run the scripts and it's going to set it up. Updating the configuration for HTTPD engine, fine. Okay, ls minus ltr tmp, and here you can see that there is one file which is corresponding to setup. Let me copy it. ldap.inf. So here I can see the details if I forget about it. Root ldap.inf. So here I can see all the details: admin port, username, password, and everything. So now it's set up. Let me restart directory server, restart, chkconfig dir serve on. Second part is dir serve admin, and let's switch on directory server admin so that it's available at reboot. Now as we have already enabled the services, the next part is IP tables rules. So okay, 1 2 3 4 and 5 is the last one where it rejects, so let me place it at IP tables, create a new chain which is going to be LDAP number 5. Insert a rule which says go to LDAP and check the rules corresponding to it. So here you can see it goes to LDAP, and in LDAP I am allowing my complete local network to have access to it. -I -p TCP -d port 389 -j accept, and let me allow for SSL also. Oh, sorry, uh, It would even be better if you allow only your network. So my network is, I deleted those rules, 1.0 minus s 192.168.1.0 slash 24. Oh, sorry. I create a rule which allow the access to port 389 TCP from source 1.0, and other is I am allowing the traffic to port 636 from this network, and finally for the admin access 9830. Fine, let's save it. Okay, the rules are ready. Let me try to open it. You can see I am on infra server. I just run 389 console, the second console, and now I'll be interacting with yeah, the phones are pretty small. Now it'll be HTTP and infra 2 because I'm interacting with uh, directory server admin on infra 2 now. Password is manager2 at 123 and I'm connected to it. Fine. So first thing I need to do is edit preferences, phones. Let me increase the font size. 16 is fine. 16 is fine, so that it's better viewable to you. Exit and let me try to connect it once again. Sorry, the password was wrong. Manager2 at 123. So now it should be better viewable. Okay, first thing I would like to do is let me set it up so that it listens on port 636 SSL, because if you are talking about any kind of transfer of data between these two servers, it should be over an encrypted channel. So server group, I go to directory server, manage certificates. I have to provide it a password. Let us give it password 2 at 123, password 2 at 123. So whenever we'll be interacting with this folder that consists of all the certificates and keys, we'll have to provide this password. Click on OK. Now first thing we need to do is to import a CA certificate. I already have it on infra server somewhere. Let me see. etc open LDAP CA search and labs.ca. Let me just copy it to infra 2. Install. Where is this file? This file is in root, and why can't I see this file? It should be labs.ca. Refresh. SSH infra 2 root at infra 2 Red Hat labs.ca is there. I think it doesn't have access. Yeah, as a regular user. Oh, sorry. I am actually on the server infra, not on infra 2. So if you are talking about infra, it should be located in slash etc open LDAP search. Got it. Slash etc open LDAP search and labs.ca. Click on next. Invalid or doesn't contain an encoded certificate. Okay. So I'll have to use the command line to import it, and the command line is going to be slash etc open LDAP dirserv slab d underscore infra 2. So we are into this folder, and now let's try to import that. So the command is search util minus help. I'm not exactly ready with the arguments, so let me pull them up. The directory will be the same, and minus f is for password file. Okay, what we need to do is we need to add it. So let's come on to adding part first. Minus a, add a certificate to the database. It will be capital A. Let me open a new session for it. SSH root at infra2 Red Hat slash etc dirserv slab d infra2, because we are talking about a directory server. So first we go to the folder, search util minus a to add, minus n nickname, it's going to be labs ca. Okay. Okay, so minus t trust arguments, it is in format xyz. So x is for SSL, y is for smime. So we are basically concerned about SSL part. So valid C, valid certification authority, fine, trusted CA to issue client and server certs. It's fine. So let's use capital C capital T over here. CT comma minus D cert directory is this one only. Minus I, specify the certificate file. Minus I is going to be root labs.ca. So search util minus L minus D dot. Here you can see that labs ca is imported. Just to confirm, this is infra. Let's move to infra 2. Sorry, this is infra. I refresh it, or I just close it. This is infra 2, manage certificates, CA certificates, and here you can see that labs CA is imported. The second part is the server certificate. Let me create a request manually. So first thing is server name infra2.labs.local, organization, I am not sure what it was in the previous state. Let me just confirm the details. However, it doesn't matter. This is infra. Go to configuration. I just close it. Directory server. manage certificates. So infra ds, let me see the details, and it was infra.labs.local. So organization is Sival, locality Pilani, education. Okay, fine. Request a new infra2.labs.local, organization, unit, education, city Pilani. It's going to be in India, state Rajasthan. So we are done. Password to access this token. Before the certificate can be installed, it must be verified using the private key of the server. So what is that? Password to @123. We just provided. So copy to the clipboard or save it to a file. Let's save it to a file in my home directory, infra2.csr. Save it. Coming on to infra server where I saved it. So I'm not sure whether sudo will work. So open ssl ca -in the file, and out goes to home or etc pki tls search infra2.crt. It's going to ask me for the password of certification authority, and the password is labsca. Are you sure you want to sign it? Yes. You want to commit, and one certificate request verified. Fine. So where I have it, it's in etc pki tls search. Let me copy it to tmp, or I'll be needing it in the destination server, root at infra 2. Let me import it now. Coming on to infra 2 server, let me try to import it. So command is going to be something like it only. The difference is the name will change here. It's going to be infra 2, and the file is going to be infra2.crt, and I import it. Let me have a look into it, and I can see infra 2 also here. Perfect. And here okay, let me close it. Let's have a look into, okay, we are done with it. Let me refresh it or close it. Manage certificates, and here I can see that the certificate corresponding to infra 2 has been installed, and it will expire on 1st Feb. It's going to expire on 1st Feb 2023, so it's valid for 10 years. Fine. Close it. We have the certificates. Now the second part that I'm going to do is I'm going to make it work on HTTPS now. I'll move to the configuration, and in the configuration let me increase the size so that it's better visible. Okay, moving on to the encryption. Enable SSL for the server. Security device is internal by default and the certificate is infra 2. So save it. At least one cipher suit must be selected. Okay, I didn't select. Use this cipher family. So let me just click it and save it. The changes will not be in effect until it is restarted. So let me move to ensure that CA certificate chain for CA that issued your server certificate has been imported and trusted. So that is the part we have already done. Click on OK. Okay, so coming on to infra 2 server, let me try to restart it. It's going to ask me for the password, which is password to @123 that we provided it. Now we should be able to do something which says the password should be saved somewhere so that it doesn't ask us every time it's restarting. And the ownership should be uh, for security purpose. Ownership should be for nobody. Now if I just try to restart, it was restarted without asking for the password, which is perfect. And there is one more loose thing in ownership. chmod go minus read write execution. Others should not be able to do anything on this file. And let me just try to restart it finally. How do we make sure that it's working on 636? So let's do an LDAP search. -x plain text, -h for providing URL LDAPs infra2.labs.local. Okay, can't contact LDAP server. Ping infra2.labs.local. Fine. Simple bind. So what's the issue? Okay, I see the reason. Where is my labs.ca? vim/root labs.ca. Let me copy it to /etc open LDAP ca certs. Okay, open LDAP client is not installed. So for LDAP, let me create the file /etc open LDAP ca certs, and let me move the file here. cp root labs.ca tc open LDAP ca certs /etc open LDAP. LDAP.conf is the file that is used by LDAP clients like LDAP Search. So let's just specify the file tls csert etc open LDAP cserts labs.ca. Let's also set the base DN, so we'll not be required to provide it every time. It's going to be labs.local. Now let me try. Sorry, it should be small x for plain text. Can't contact LDAP server. Is it listening? It should be. Grep 636. So NS slap D is listening on 636. Minus H. One thing, it's UTC 1525, 1528, 1525. Sometimes there could be an issue with the timestamp. Let me just update the time. NTP date, grep server slash etc ntp.conf. Time is very critical part if you are talking about TLS. Okay, and so it will be considered when we'll start replication between them. So we need to look about both the servers. SASL bind simple, can't contact LDAP server. Is the port open? Let me see. Port is opened. Fine. Port is open for both the cases. LDAP search Shift G. Any example? Coming on to minus small x, it should be small x. Use simple authentication instead of SASL. Yeah, it's small x. X LDAP infra.labs.local. This is for the first server and it works fine. If I check it out for the second server, it works fine. If I impose SSL connector, start TLS server willing to negotiate SSL. Okay. LDAP search over SSL is working fine for infra 2 as well as it's working fine for infra. So we are fine. Now the time zone is fine, and LDAP search for LDAP's protocol on infra as well as infra 2 is working fine. So both the servers are now listening on 636 and supporting LDAP's protocol. That is fine. Coming on to OK, click on OK. Okay, so now we have two servers, infra and infra 2. Let me resize it and move it aside. This is corresponding to infra 2 and this is corresponding to infra. Close it and close it. Okay, now these are the two servers, infra 2 and infra. Now this infra server is going to act as a master where we will be updating the things, and this is going to work as a slave which will catch the updates that will be done from infra server. If we are talking about the replication in terms of 389 directory server or LDAP directory server, there are two things that we need to understand. One is supplier and other is consumer. The replication works in 389 directory server on the basis of push. It means that the master server is pushing the updates to slave server. Master server infra is going to push the updates to this infra 2, which is going to work as a slave. So how will this push work? First of all, there should be some kind of user that should be added on the slave that will be used by master server to push the updates, and that user should have appropriate privileges, so it allows you to update the directory on this slave server. So let us first create a user on the slave. Coming on to directory server, double click on it, config, coming on to directory. I am creating it outside the labs. The reason being, the labs part, or dc equal to labs comma dc equal to local, is going to be replicated between these two servers. So I don't want this replica user to be updated during the replication so that it could break your application. So let's keep it aside. So I am placing it inside config folder. I create a new user and I could give it name replication manager. So it's going to work as R manager 1, or let's say it's R manager 2 because it's present on infra 2. Password is R manager 2 at 123. R manager 2 at 123. Okay, and let me keep it small letters. It doesn't matter, you can you can keep it in capital letters, that's not an issue. So click on OK. Okay, so this part is done. There is one user in the slave which will allow the master server or the supplier to push updates to it. What about the access control list for this user? This user should have a privileges so that it allows this master to update the tree over here. So first part, user is created. Second, allow master to use this user to update the directory over here. So some additional privileges are required to be provided. So let's click on configuration, replication. Let me increase the size so that you can look into it better. So first part is this needs to be done at the supplier end. Enable change log. So whatever modification is being done, log it so that the updates can be sent to the consumers. So labs infra 2 is working as a slave. I don't need change log. Let me click on it. Now I can see user root. So user root is the part that we are going to replicate between these two infra and infra 2 directory servers. So corresponding to user root, I just enable replica. And what kind of replica is it going to be? This is going to be a dedicated consumer that consumes something. So what it is going to consume, infra 2 is going to consume the updates of the users from the master server. So we say it's a dedicated consumer. Single master, we'll set it on infra server, and I'll let you know. Multiple master is the part when we are setting a multi-master replication. So this we'll understand in future chapters. Hub, it means it's going to get updates and it's going to send updates to the master. So it's a kind of hub which allows you to connect multiple servers to it. So let's basically consider about dedicated consumers as of now. So this is going to act as a slave. As soon as you set it as a dedicated consumer, it provides you an option of current supplier distinguished name. So what it means? It means, and you have to enter it. It means that you are going to define a user that will be used by this supplier to push the updates. So this user will be used by the supplier to connect to the slave or the consumer and push updates to it. So UID equal to R manager 2 comma cn equal to config. Add it and save it. So with this the slave is ready. I did two things. First, I set up a user R manager 2. Second part is I set this slave or the consumer as a dedicated consumer and allowed this particular user so that this user can be used by the supplier to push updates to the consumer. And the other part you may be needing is for from after how many days the your details should be purged, the extra logs should be purged. So by default it's 7, that's fine. If you want to set it never, they'll never be purged. Save it. So consumer part is done. Now coming on to the supplier part, double click on it. Here we are on the infra server. This is infra 2. This is infra 2. Keep it aside. Let's close it. Okay, so here I come to the configuration replication. On the master server you have to enable change logs which keep a track of changes that you made to the directory server. So whatever modifications we are making to this master server or the supplier, they'll be logged. There should be some directory where they'll be saved. So let's use the default directory, which is var libdev slab d infra and changelog db. Save it. Now whatever will be modified on the master server will be logged. First part. Second is corresponding to the user root that we are going to replicate, we have to enable replica, and this needs to be done on master as well as slave that you had a look into. But the difference that is going to be between the master and the server is master server is going to act as a single master because this is a master slave scenario. So it's going to act as a single master. That means it's going to keep track of the modification of itself and is going to push the updates to the slave. And dedicated consumer means that is going to act as a slave only and you cannot update anything over here. Whenever you are setting up a master server, you need to specify it an ID starting from 1, and we'll have to check out for the maximum limit. It's something 65,000 I think. So replica ID is going to identify a particular replication server. This should be different for every directory server that is acting as a master. So it's always unique. Delay purge, you can increase the number of days or you can mark as never, it depends upon you. So here you can see that current supplier DNs is marked as gray, or you cannot edit it, because it is going to send updates, and for that we'll be setting the user in a different way. I'll show you. So this current supplier DN means the DN that will be used by the supplier to send updates to a particular directory. So here, to recall, I set the replica ID marked as a single master and enable replica on it. I save it. So second part is done. I enable changelog, and in the user root I set replication, and the final part that we are going to set up is an replication agreement, which is actually the thing which allows the replication to happen between the two servers. So let's say, give it any name, infra to infra 2, infra to infra 2 replication. So click on next. Now it says who is going to act as a supplier, who is going to act as a master. It's infra server itself, 636. Fine. Who is going to act as a consumer? So consumer is the slave, which is infra 2. infra2.labs.local 389. Sorry, we'll be using the port 636, which is for SSL. Click on OK. Use TLS SSL. Use start TLS. So we are going to use TLS SSL. And secondly, now I'll be interacting with the slave server, but I need to have the credentials on the master that will be used to connect to the slave server and send update to it. So it is going to be cn equal to, I think it's UID equal to r manager 2 comma cn equal to config. Password is r manager 2 at 123. I click on next. So it didn't display any kind of warning to me. It means the connection was successful. In case you have some issue with the connection, for example, I just replace it and click on next. It says consumer server is unreachable. Do you wish to continue? No. So let me correct it. The same happens in case you have any kind of issue with the password or the username. Click on next. Now it says, what kind of replication do you want? Do you want fractional replication? Means only a set of attributes will be replicated to the slave rather than the complete attributes. So in our scenario, our objective is to have the replication between this master and the slave server, so that everything corresponding to user root should be replicated from the master to the slave. So we are not required to check it, so keep it unchecked, and you cannot select anything from here. Now click on next. Now provide schedule information. So these are all what are happening in replication agreement. It says first is always keep the directories in sync. It simply means whenever you make a modification on the master server, instantly it is going to get updated to the slave server. So this is what we want. In case you want replication to happen at a particular day and a particular time, you can set it up, and you have the option for it. But it's always suggested that everything should be updated. So by default, always keep directories in sync is fine. Click on next. Now it says initialize consumer. Do you want to initialize the consumer now? It can provide you an LDAP file that you can use to import there. Initialize the consumer now. It will initialize the consumer itself, and do not initialize consumer will not initialize. So this option we never use. Second and third could be used. Best is to use second option, which says initialize the consumer now. So before we initialize, I would like to show you something. Coming on to directory in labs, corresponding to the groups, I can see these groups. Corresponding to the peoples, I cannot see anything. So as soon as I click on initialize consumer now, it'll show me the details that it'll be using, and I click on done. So what it is trying to do is it's trying to initialize the consumer, and it says consumer initialization has successfully completed. Means whatever updates were present in this directory server has already been pushed to this one, slave. I refresh it and I can see these users that have been pushed and that were present on the master server that have been pushed to it. Okay, let's see whether the application is working fine. So let's add one more user, which is going to be rcval LDAP4. Let me create a new user. LDAP4, or let's keep it like this, rcval LDAP4. Password is test. You can set out the details of emails and other details also, but as of now we have to just test it out. So what I did is I added it. Actually the thing that was selected was rcval LDAP3, so I was put over here. I just cut it and paste it in people. So now I can see that user is present in OU equal to people. Here it was not present. I'll just click on refresh. Click on people and refresh, and here you can see that your user rcval LDAP4 is there. Now let's try to do one thing. Let's try to create a new user over here. rcval LDAP5. Test, whatever the password is. So it says cannot save to directory server. Referral bind failed. Error result invalid credentials. This happened because what it did was it tried to contact to infra.labs.local on 389 and it failed. First thing that is happening in this scenario is you are trying to create a user on infra2 server which is working as a slave. So on slave you should not create the users directly. If you are talking about updating the users and keeping all the users in sync, best approach is you create a multi-master replication between these directory servers that we are going to set it up on the next session. So as of now, this is acting as a master server and this is going to act as a slave server. Whatever you update over here will be updated on the slave server.